The giant meeting hall floated in space between three different star systems. It was made of some kind of metal that changed colors when the light hit it. Inside, 12 different types of alien beings sat around a huge circular table that glowed with soft blue light. Klex9 stood up from his seat. He looked like a walking crystal, about 7 feet tall, with light moving through his body like water. When he was angry, the light turned red. Right now, it was very red. "We have a problem," Klex9 said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "The humans are everywhere." The other aliens turned to look at him. Some had big eyes, some had no eyes at all. There was Histolar, who looked like a giant bug standing on 2 legs. His mouth parts clicked together when he was thinking. There was Vex Prime, who was so old that nobody remembered what his species originally looked like. He had 6 arms and skin that looked like old leather. "Tell us about the humans," said Vex Prime. His voice was deep and slow, like rocks falling down a mountain. Klex9 waved one of his crystal arms. A big screen appeared in the air above the table. It showed a map of their part of the galaxy. Little red dots were scattered all over it. "Each red dot is a human colony," Klex9 said. 6 months ago, there were 50 dots. Now there are over 200, the aliens looked at the map. Some of them made worried sounds. "That's not possible," said Histolar. His bug-like head tilted to one side. "No species can expand that fast. It takes years to set up a proper colony." "Humans don't set up proper colonies," Klex9 said. "They just land on a planet and start building. They don't ask permission. They don't file the right papers. They don't even check if we own the planet first." An alien that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke up. "But surely they follow the basic rules." "Everyone follows the basic rules." "No," Klex9 said. "They don't. Look at this." The screen changed to show a small planet covered in green and blue. "This is the world they call New Kansas. According to our records, this planet belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. But when our ships went to check on it, they found 300 human families living there. They had farms, schools, and even a small spaceport." "What did they say when you told them to leave?" asked Vex Prime. "They said they would pass our message along to someone in charge. Then they offered to sell us corn." Several aliens made shocked noises. Histolar's mouth parts clicked rapidly. "They offered to sell you corn on a planet that doesn't belong to them?" "Yes," Klex9 said, "and it was very good corn." The floating jellyfish alien pulsed with different colors. "This is very strange behavior." "What do they want?" "That's the problem," Klex9 said. "They don't seem to want anything special. They just want to live on different planets. They say they need room to grow." "Room to grow?" Vex Prime leaned forward. "How many humans are there?" "About 12 billion on their home planet," Klex9 said. "But they're not running out of space. Earth is a big planet. They just like having options." The aliens sat quietly for a moment. This was hard to understand. Most species only left their home planets when they had to. When there was no more room or no more food, or when their star was dying. "Have you tried explaining the rules to them?" asked a tall, thin alien with blue skin. "Many times," Klex9 said. "We sent them a copy of the Galactic Laws, all 47 volumes. They sent back a message that said, 'Thank you for the reading material,' and kept building colonies." "What about trade sanctions?" suggested Histolar. "Cut off their supply of rare metals and advanced technology." "That always works." "We tried that too," Klex9 said. "They just started mining asteroids and making their own technology. Some of it is actually better than ours." The room fell silent again. "This was becoming a very strange problem," Vex Prime spoke slowly. "Show us what happened when you tried to reason with them." The screen changed again. Now it showed a human man sitting behind a desk. He had gray hair and wore a blue uniform. The name tag on his uniform said, "Admiral Morrison." "This is the recording from last week," Klex9 said. On the screen, Klex9's voice could be heard. "Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Council has been very patient with your species. But you must understand that there are rules." Admiral Morrison looked at the camera and smiled. "We appreciate your patience, Klex9, we really do. But we're not causing any problems. We only settle on empty planets." Empty according to who? Klex9's voice asked. Empty according to our sensors, Admiral Morrison said. No cities, no farms, no signs of intelligent life, just rocks and water and air. But many of those planets are already claimed by Council member species, Admiral Morrison shrugged. If they wanted them, they should have put someone there. We're not kicking anyone out, we're just using empty space. That's not how it works, Klex9's voice said, getting higher. You need permission, you need to file applications. You need to pay fees. To who? Admiral Morrison asked. And why? To the Council. Because we maintain order in this galaxy. Admiral Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he said, with respect, Klex9, you maintain order for species that need order maintained. We're doing fine on our own, the recording ended. The aliens looked at each other. He's not wrong, said the blue-skinned alien quietly. The humans haven't attacked anyone. They haven't stolen anything. They're just living on empty planets. But they're doing it wrong, Histalar said. They're supposed to ask first. Why? Asked the floating jellyfish. If the planets are empty, why do they need to ask? Because that's how it's always been done, Vex Prime said firmly. For 10,000 years, species have come to the Council for permission to expand. It's the civilized way. But what if they don't want to be civilized? Asked the jellyfish. All the aliens stared at it. This was not a question anyone had ever asked before, Klex9 spoke up. It doesn't matter what they want. They're disrupting the natural order. Other species are starting to ask questions. The Valdorians want to know why they still need to fill out forms when humans don't. The Centauri are saying they want to expand without permission too. This is serious, Vex Prime said. If species start ignoring the Council, everything we've built will fall apart. Then what do we do? Astis-TLAR.Vex-Prime stood up. All of his 6 arms spread wide. We make an example of them. We show the galaxy that the Council's authority cannot be ignored. You mean war? Asked the blue-skinned alien. I mean consequences, Vex Prime said. First we try economic pressure. Cut off all trade with humans. Make it clear that ignoring the Council has a price. And if that doesn't work? Asked the jellyfish, then we consider military action, Vex Prime said. One small colony, a show of force, nothing too harsh. The aliens voted. 11 species agreed. The jellyfish alien was the only one who didn't vote at all. The decision is made, Vex Prime announced. Effective immediately, all trade with humans is suspended. They have 30 days to begin following proper procedures for expansion, or we will take further action. As the meeting ended and the aliens returned to their ships, none of them noticed the small listening device attached to the underside of the table. It had been there for months, placed by a human maintenance worker who had been hired to fix the station's air recycling system. The device transmitted everything directly to Admiral Morrison's office on Earth. When the Admiral heard the recording, he leaned back in his chair and started laughing. His aide, Commander Lisa Park, looked at him with concern. Sir, they're threatening us with economic sanctions and military action. Shouldn't we be worried? Admiral Morrison wiped tears from his eyes. Lisa, do you know what humans call it when someone threatens to stop selling them things they can make themselves? No, sir. Tuesday, Admiral Morrison said and started laughing again. The message from the Galactic Council reached Earth 12 hours after the alien meeting ended. It appeared on screens in government buildings, military bases, and colony ships all across human space. The message was written in very formal language. That took 3 paragraphs to say what could have been said in 1 sentence. Director Ryan Bell, read the message while drinking his morning coffee on Luna Station. Luna Station was built inside a crater on the moon, and from Ryan's office window, he could see Earth hanging in the black sky like a blue marble. Ryan was in charge of all human colonies outside Earth's solar system. He had been doing this job for 8 years, and he had seen the human population spread from 5 worlds to over 200. It was the fastest expansion in human history. His communication device beeped. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen. Ryan, I'm guessing you got the same message I did, Admiral Morrison said. The one where they're cutting off trade and giving us 30 days to start asking permission? Ryan asked. Yeah, I got it. What do you think? Ryan took another sip of his coffee. I think they don't understand humans very well. How so? They think we're like them. They think we need their permission to survive. But we've been planning for this day since we first met them. Admiral Morrison smiled. The Independence Protocol. Exactly, Ryan said. Every human colony has been designed to be completely self-sufficient. We don't need their technology, their materials, or their markets. We've been trading with them because it was convenient, not because we had to. On the farming world of New Kansas, colony leader Pete Johnson was reading the same message while eating breakfast. His wife Maria was outside feeding their chickens. Their farm was one of 300 on the planet, and together they grew enough food to feed everyone with plenty left over. Pete's neighbor, Jack Williams, came walking up the dirt road that connected their farms. Jack was carrying a tablet computer and didn't look happy. You see this message from the aliens? Jack asked. Yeah, Pete said. They're mad because we didn't ask permission to live here. But there was nobody here when we arrived, Jack said. The planet was empty, nothing but grass and trees and rivers. That's what I told them, Pete said. But apparently we were supposed to fill out some forms first. Maria came back from the chicken coop with a basket of eggs. What forms? She asked. The aliens have this system, Pete explained. Before you can live on a planet, you have to ask the Galactic Council. Then you have to pay fees. Then you have to wait for approval. How long does that take? Maria asked. According to their website, about 15 years, Pete said. Jack started, laughing. 15 years? My kids would be grown up by then. That's the point, Pete said. They want to control everything. They want every species to depend on them. Well, they picked the wrong species, Maria said. We've been taking care of ourselves for thousands of years. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory manager Bob Davis was having a similar conversation with his workers. New Pittsburgh was covered in factories that made everything from spaceships to coffee cups. The workers came from all over human space, and they were proud of what they had built. So they're cutting off trade? Asked mechanic Tony Clark. That's what they say, Bob replied. No more selling us their fancy computers or their special metals. Do we need their computers? Asked engineer Sarah Lopez. Not really, Bob said. Our computers are actually faster than theirs. We just bought theirs because they were cheaper. What about the special metals? Asked Tony. We've been mining those from asteroids for 2 years now, Bob said. We have more than we know what to do with. The workers looked at each other and started grinning. So basically, Sarah said, they're threatening to stop selling us things we don't need? That's about the size of it, Bob said. The news spread quickly through human space. On colony ships traveling between stars, captains read the message and started laughing. On mining stations in asteroid belts, workers made jokes about aliens, who didn't understand humans, but the most interesting reaction came from the colonies themselves. Instead of panicking or preparing for siege, the colonists did something unexpected. They started expanding faster. Captain Steve Murphy was leading a survey mission to the Kepler 442 system when he got the message. He was supposed to map the system and report back to Earth. Instead, he found 3 planets that could support human life. Change of plans, he told his crew. We're not just mapping anymore, we're colonizing. His science officer, Dr. Linda Foster, looked surprised. Don't. We need approval from Earth. Earth gave us general approval to establish colonies wherever we find suitable worlds, Steve said. And with the aliens cutting off trade, we need to expand faster, not slower. Within a week, the first colonists were landing on all 3 planets. They named them New Virginia, New Oregon, and New Montana. The same thing was happening all over human space. Colony ships that had been taking their time to find the perfect worlds were settling for good worlds. Survey teams were calling for immediate colonization. Instead of long-term studies, Captain Helen Chow was mining asteroids in the Proxima Centauri system when she got the message. She had been selling rare metals to alien traders for 3 years. Now those traders were gone? Well, she told her crew, I guess we keep all the metals for ourselves now. Her crew was happy about this. They had always felt like they were selling their hard work too cheaply. Now they could send the metals to human colonies that really needed them. Meanwhile, on Earth, government officials were meeting to discuss the situation. President Karen White sat at the head of a long table in the White House Situation Room. Around the table were generals, admirals, and civilian leaders. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," President White said. "The aliens are threatening to stop trading with us if we don't ask permission before establishing new colonies." "That's correct, Madam President," said Secretary of State Daniel Pierce. "And our response is?" Admiral Morrison leaned forward. "We continue doing exactly what we've been doing. We don't need their permission, and we don't need their trade." "What about the colonies that are already established?" asked General Robert Lee. "Are they in danger?" "Only if the aliens decide to use military force," Admiral Morrison said. "But that would be a very bad decision on their part." "Why?" asked President White. "Because every human colony has been preparing for this day," Admiral Morrison said. "We've been building defensive capabilities and military infrastructure from the beginning. We just didn't advertise it." Secretary Pierce looked worried. We talking about war?" "We're talking about being ready for anything," Admiral Morrison said. "But I don't think it will come to that. The aliens are used to dealing with species that need them. They don't know how to handle species that don't." President White was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What's our official response?" "Simple," Admiral Morrison said. "We thank them for their message and inform them that we will continue our current expansion policies. We're not declaring war and we're not backing down, we're just being human." 2 days later, the official response was transmitted to the Galactic Council. It was only 1 paragraph long, compared to their 3-page message. It said, "The United Nations of Earth acknowledges the Galactic Council's message regarding expansion policies. We will continue to establish colonies on uninhabited worlds as our population requires. We have never claimed sovereignty over inhabited worlds and have no intention of doing so. We thank the Council for their past trade relationships and wish them well in their future endeavors." When the aliens received this message, they were confused. They had expected anger or fear or at least an argument. Instead, they got a polite thank you note and a clear statement that humans would keep doing whatever they wanted. On New Kansas, Pete Johnson was reading the news about Earth's response when his wife Maria came in from the garden. "What did Earth say to the aliens?" she asked. Pete smiled. "They said thank you and goodbye. That's it?" "That's it," Maria laughed. "I love being human." Outside their window, the sun was setting over fields of corn and wheat. In the distance, they could see the lights of their neighbors' farms. It was a peaceful scene that would have been impossible without human stubbornness and the willingness to build something new in an empty place. Neither of them knew that their quiet little farming world would soon become the center of a conflict that would change the galaxy forever. 6 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council stopped trading with humans. The aliens expected to see human expansion slow down or stop completely. Instead, something very different happened. Klex-9 stood in front of the emergency council meeting, his crystal body flashing angry red colors. The big screen behind him showed the galaxy map again, but now there were even more red dots than before. "The situation has gotten worse," Klex-9 said. "Much worse." Vex Prime leaned forward in his ancient chair. "How much worse?" "When we stopped trading with them 6 weeks ago, humans had 247 colonies. Today they have 391 colonies." The room fell silent. Several aliens made shocked sounds. "That's impossible," said Histalar. "No species can establish that many colonies so quickly. Humans can," Klex-9 said. "They're not building normal colonies. They land on a planet, set up basic shelters, and start calling it home. Within a month, they have farms and factories." The floating jellyfish alien pulsed with confused colors. "But how do they supply these colonies? Where do they get materials and equipment?" "They make everything themselves," Klex-9 said. "Our intelligence reports show that human manufacturing has increased by 400% since we stopped trading with them. They're using the ships that were carrying trade goods, said the blue-skinned alien. Now those ships are carrying colonists and supplies instead. Vex Prime was quiet for a long moment. Show me the worst case. The screen changed to show a solar system with 8 planets. 5 of them were now marked with red dots. The Tau Ceti system, Klex9 said. 6 months ago, humans had one small colony on the 4th planet. Now they have major settlements on 5 planets and mining operations on the other 3. What about the species that claimed those planets? Asked Histalar. The Valdorians claimed the system 200 years ago, but they never actually went there, Klex9 said. The humans found no evidence of Valdorian presence, so they settled the entire system. This is getting out of control, Vex Prime said. Other species are starting to notice. He was right. In the past month, 3 different species had asked the Council why humans didn't need to follow the same rules as everyone else. The Centauri Republic had actually started expanding into unclaimed systems without asking permission first. We need to do something dramatic, Vex Prime said. Something that will show the galaxy that the Council's authority cannot be ignored. What do you suggest? Asked the blue-skinned alien. Military action, Vex Prime said. We choose one small human colony and force them to leave. A demonstration of power. The aliens began talking among themselves. Some agreed with Vex Prime. Others were worried about fighting humans. What do we know about human military capabilities? Asked Histalar. Very little, Klex9 admitted. They have ships, but we don't know how many or how advanced they are. Most of their colonies appear to be undefended. Then we pick a small, isolated colony, Vex Prime said. Somewhere with no military value. We give them a chance to leave peacefully. If they refuse, we force them out. The Council voted. This time, only the jellyfish alien voted against military action. The target they chose was New Frontier, a farming colony in the Tau Ceti system. It had about 2,000 people and no obvious military installations. The Council sent a battle group of 6 ships under war leader X-Kalen. Kalen was a Manthari warrior who had fought in dozens of battles. He had never lost a fight and he wasn't planning to start now. But he had never fought humans before. On New Frontier, colony administrator Lucy Torres was checking the weather reports when her communication system started beeping. She was a former Earth military officer who had retired to farming, but she still knew trouble when she saw it. This is war leader X-Kalen of the Galactic Council Fleet, came the message. The human settlement on this world is in violation of galactic law. You have 48 hours to evacuate this planet or face military action. Lucy sat back in her chair and sighed. She had been expecting this day for months. Every human colony leader had been warned that the aliens might try something like this. She activated the colony's emergency communication system. Within minutes, every person on New Frontier had received the message. The colonists gathered in the community center, which was really just a large metal building where they held meetings and celebrations. Lucy stood in front of the crowd. Folks, you all heard the message, she said. The aliens want us to leave our homes. A farmer named Joe Martinez stood up. This is crazy. We've been here for 3 years. We built everything from scratch. We turned empty dirt into farms that feed thousands of people. They say we're breaking their laws, said schoolteacher Beth Williams, but we never agreed to follow their laws. Dr. Kevin Brown, the colony's doctor, raised his hand. Lucy, what does Earth say about this? Lucy smiled. Admiral Morrison sent a message 20 minutes ago. He said, and I quote, "Stand your ground? The cavalry is coming." The crowd started talking excitedly. Some people were scared, but most were angry. They had worked too hard to build their new home to give it up now. What cavalry? Asked Joe Martinez. The kind that doesn't advertise itself, Lucy said. Trust me, we're not alone out here. She was right. For the past 2 years, the Human Defense Force had been quietly building military bases throughout human space. They were hidden inside asteroid mining stations, disguised as research facilities, and built into the ground on remote planets, Admiral Morrison was on one of these hidden bases when he got the report about New Frontier. The base was built inside a large asteroid in the same solar system, only 3 hours away from the colony. How many ships do they have? He asked his intelligence officer, Commander Amy Foster. 6 ships, sir, standard council design. Nothing we can't handle. And how many ships do we have in the area? 24, sir, plus the ground-based defense systems on New Frontier. Admiral Morrison looked surprised. Ground-based defenses? I thought New Frontier was just a farming colony. It is, sir. But every human colony has been building defensive systems since day one. The colonists just hid them very well. This was true. While the aliens had been watching human colonies grow, they had only seen farms, factories, and homes. They had missed the underground bunkers, the hidden weapon systems, and the defensive shields that looked like normal buildings. When war leader Vex Kalen's fleet arrived at New Frontier, he expected to find a helpless farming colony. Instead, he found something that made his blood run cold. The planet was surrounded by human warships. Not just a few ships, but an entire fleet. They had appeared from nowhere, as if they had been waiting for this exact moment. Where did they come from? Vex Kalen asked his second-in-command. Unknown, sir. Our sensors detected nothing until they powered up their weapon systems. The lead human ship sent a message. Galactic Council vessels. This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Defense Force. You are approaching a sovereign human colony. Any hostile action will be considered an act of war. Vex Kalen had expected an easy victory against some farmers. Instead, he was facing a professional military force that had been planning for this fight. Human vessels, he transmitted back. You are interfering with a lawful council operation. Withdraw immediately. Negative, Admiral Morrison replied. This is human space. You withdraw. For 18 hours, the two fleets stared at each other. Vex Kalen's ships were outnumbered 4-1, but he had his pride. He had never retreated from a fight, but as the hours passed, more human ships kept arriving. First there were 24, then 30, then 40. Sir, his second-in-command said quietly, we're getting reports that human fleets are mobilizing throughout the galaxy. This isn't just about one colony anymore. Vex Kalen realized that he had walked into a trap. The humans had been waiting for the council to make exactly this move. They had been preparing for war while pretending to be peaceful farmers and miners. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving a message from the council. They're ordering us to withdraw. What? Vex Kalen couldn't believe it. We haven't even started fighting yet. The council says that 7 other human colonies are also surrounded by human fleets. They think the humans are preparing for a full-scale war. Vex Kalen looked at the human ships surrounding New Frontier. They weren't just farmers with guns. These were professional warships with trained crews. The humans had been hiding there. Military strength for years. All ships, he said finally, prepare to withdraw from the system. As the council fleet left New Frontier, the human colonists cheered. They had faced down the most powerful military force in the galaxy and won without firing a shot. Admiral Morrison watched the alien ships leave and smiled. The council had just learned something important about humans. They didn't just build colonies, they built communities worth fighting for, and humans were very good at fighting for what they believed in. The news of the failed military action spread across the galaxy faster than light. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had been forced to retreat without achieving their goal. Species that had never questioned council. Authority were now asking uncomfortable questions on the council station. Emergency meetings were happening around the clock. Vex Prime sat in his private chamber, all 6 of his ancient arms pressed against his head. He had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years, and nothing like this had ever happened before. Klex-9 entered the chamber, his crystal body flickering with nervous energy. The reports are coming in from all sectors, he said. The situation is much worse than we thought. How much worse? Vex Prime asked. The humans didn't just defend New Frontier. They have military forces stationed throughout their territory. Our intelligence estimates suggest they have over 200 warships hidden in their space. Vex Prime looked up. 200? Where did they get 200 warships? They built them, Klex9 said. While we were watching them establish farms and factories, they were also building shipyards and military bases. They hid everything inside asteroids, on remote moons, and underground on their colony worlds. And we never detected any of this? No, sir. Their technology is more advanced than we realized. They can hide ships from our sensors. Vex Prime was quiet for a long moment. What are the other species saying? The Valdorians are demanding to know why we can't control one primitive species. The Centauri Republic has started expanding into unclaimed systems without asking permission. The Rigel Confederation is questioning whether they need to keep paying council fees. And the humans? They're celebrating. Every human colony is having parties. They're calling it Independence Day and making it an official holiday. On New Frontier, the colonists were indeed celebrating. They had set up tables in the main square and were having the biggest party in the colony's history. Music played from speakers, children ran around with balloons, and adults shared stories about the day they faced down the galaxy's most powerful military force. Lucy Torres stood on a platform in the center of the square, holding a glass of locally made wine. 3 years ago, we came to this empty planet with nothing but determination and a few basic tools. Today, we prove that no one can force us to give up our home. The crowd cheered. Joe Martinez, the farmer who had been angry about the aliens' demands, raised his own glass. To the Galactic Council, for reminding us that freedom isn't free and that humans don't back down from bullies. More cheers erupted from the crowd. Children who had been born on New Frontier looked up at the stars, knowing that they were looking at their home, not some distant place their parents had come from, but while the humans celebrated, the aliens were dealing with a crisis that was growing worse by the hour. The failed military action had shown every species in the galaxy that the Council could be defeated. Worse, it had shown that the Council didn't understand the species they were trying to control. Dr. Yix Maiden, the Zephyrian scientist who had been studying humans for years, was called to an emergency meeting with the Council leadership. He had been trying to warn them about human behavior for months, but no one had listened. Dr. Yix Maiden, Vex Prime said, we need to understand what we're dealing with. How are humans different from other species? The scientist's crystal body glowed with steady blue light, a sign that he was thinking carefully. Honored council members, I have been studying humans for 8 years. They are unlike any species we have encountered. In what way? Asked Kistelar. Most species expand when they are forced to. When their home world becomes overcrowded, or when they need resources they cannot find at home, humans expand because they enjoy it. They see empty space as an opportunity, not a problem to be solved. But why don't they ask permission? Asked Klex9. Every civilized species follows proper procedures. Because they don't see empty space as belonging to anyone, Dr. Yix Maiden said. If there are no people living somewhere, humans believe it belongs to whoever is willing to work to make it livable. The council members looked at each other. This was a completely alien concept to them. What about their military strength? Asked Vex Prime. How did they build such a powerful fleet without us noticing? They didn't build it in secret, Dr. Yix Maiden said. They built it openly, we just didn't recognize it as military construction. Explain. Every human colony has workshops that make tools and equipment. Every mining operation has ships that move materials. Every farming world has factories that process food. Humans don't separate civilian and military production the way we do. They build everything together. Histelar's mouthparts clicked nervously. So their entire civilization is basically one big military-industrial complex? No, Dr. Yix Maiden said. It's one big survival system. Humans prepare for anything that might threaten their communities. They don't think in terms of military versus civilian. They think in terms of what needs to be done to protect their families. On Earth, President Karen White was meeting with her advisors about their council situation. The mood in the room was confident but cautious. "What's our next move?" she asked. Admiral Morrison leaned forward. "We wait. The council is in chaos right now. They're dealing with other species questioning their authority, and they're trying to figure out how to handle us." "Are we expecting another military action?" asked Secretary of State Daniel Pierce. "Probably not," Admiral Morrison said. War leader Thex Kalen's report made it clear that we're much stronger than they expected. They know that a real war would be very costly. For them, what do they want from us? President White asked. "The same thing they've always wanted," Admiral Morrison said. "They want us to ask permission and pay fees and follow their rules. They want to be in charge. And our position? The same as always. We're not starting any fights, but we're not asking permission to live our lives either." Back on the council station, the emergency meetings continued. Some aliens wanted to try a larger military attack. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested just ignoring the humans and hoping they would go away. "We could try a different approach," suggested the floating jellyfish alien. "Instead of trying to control them, we could try to work with them." "Work with them?" Vex Prime looked confused. "What do you mean?" "They're not trying to destroy us or take over our territory. They just want to live on empty planets." "Maybe we could make an agreement." "What kind of agreement?" asked Histalar. "We recognize their right to settle uninhabited worlds. In exchange, they agree to respect the territory of council member species." The room fell silent. No one had ever suggested making an agreement with a species that refused to follow council authority. "That would be unprecedented," Vex Prime said. "So is having a species successfully defy the council," the jellyfish alien pointed out. Dr. Yixmedan spoke up. "If I may, honored council members, I believe negotiation is our best option. Humans are reasonable people. They will make agreements. If they believe those agreements are fair—" "But they don't respect our authority," Klex9 said. "No," Dr. Yixmed agreed. "But they might respect a partnership." The word partnership hung in the air like a strange new concept. The council had always been about authority and control. The idea of treating another species as an equal partner was revolutionary. "What would such a partnership look like?" asked Vex Prime. "Humans would agree to certain basic rules about expansion and interaction with other species. In return, we would give them a voice in galactic affairs and recognize their independence." "You're talking about changing the fundamental nature of the council," Histalar said. "The fundamental nature of the council is already changing," Dr. Yixmedan said. "The question is whether we control that change or let it happen without us." Meanwhile, on human colonies throughout the galaxy, life continued as normal. People went to work, children went to school, and families had dinner together. The difference was that now they knew their homes were protected by more than just their own hard work. On New Kansas, Pete Johnson was working in his cornfield when his neighbor Jack Williams came over to talk. "You hear the latest news?" Jack asked. "What news?" "The aliens are having some kind of crisis. Apparently, other species are starting to ignore their rules too." Pete straightened up and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Good for them. Maybe now everyone will realize that you don't need permission to live your life. Think the aliens will try to attack us again?" Pete looked up at the blue sky of New Kansas, where 2 moons were visible even in daylight. "I don't know. But if they do, we'll be ready for them." He was right. Every human colony was ready. They had proven that they could defend themselves, and they had shown the galaxy that some things were worth fighting for. The question now was whether the aliens would learn to live with that reality or whether they would keep trying to control people who refused to be controlled. 3 months after the failed attack on New Frontier, the Galactic Council faced a reality they had never imagined. 7 different species had started expanding without permission. The Centauri Republic had established 12 new colonies. The Rigel Confederation had stopped paying council fees. Even the normally obedient Aldorian Empire was asking questions about council authority. The emergency session that would change galactic history began on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. Vex Prime looked older than his 3,000 years as he called the meeting to order. "We have a choice," he said to the assembled representatives. "We can continue trying to force compliance, or we can try something different." "Different how?" asked Histalar. "We negotiate with the humans." The reaction was immediate. Several aliens started talking at once. Some were angry, others confused. The idea of negotiating with a species that had defied them was shocking. "Order!" Vex Prime called out. "Dr. Yix Maiden has prepared a proposal." The Zephyrian scientist stood up, his crystal body glowing with calm blue light. "Honored council members, I propose that we offer the humans a formal partnership." "Partnership?" Klex-9's body flashed red. "They ignored our laws and threatened our authority. And in doing so, they showed us something important," Dr. Yix-Maiden said. "They showed us that our old ways of governing don't work for every species. Maybe it's time to try new ways." "What kind of partnership?" asked the floating jellyfish alien. "We give humans observer status on the council. They agree to respect the territory of existing council member species. In return, we recognize their right to settle uninhabited worlds." The room fell silent. No species had ever been given observer status without first spending decades following council authority. "This is unprecedented," said the blue-skinned alien. "So is having a species successfully defy us," Dr. Yix-Maiden replied. "We can either adapt to this new reality or watch our authority crumble as more species follow the human example." The debate continued for hours. Some aliens wanted to make one final military push against the humans. Others worried that any agreement would encourage more species to rebel. But slowly, a consensus began to emerge. The galaxy was changing. The council could either change with it or become irrelevant. The vote was close. 7 species voted for negotiation, 4 voted against, and 1 abstained. It was enough. 2 weeks later, the first formal communication was sent from the council to Earth. Instead of demands or threats, it was an invitation to discuss mutual cooperation and galactic stability. President Karen White read the message. In the Oval Office, surrounded by her advisors, the tone was completely different from the council's previous communications. "They want to talk," she said. "It could be a trap," warned General Robert Lee. "Or it could be genuine," said Admiral Morrison. "Our intelligence suggests they're dealing with massive internal problems. Other species are questioning their authority because of how we handled their threats. What do you recommend?" President White asked. "We talk," Admiral Morrison said. "But we talk as equals, not as subjects asking for permission." The negotiations took place on a neutral station in the Vega system. The human delegation was led by President White herself, along with Admiral Morrison and Director Ryan Bell. The council sent Vex Prime, Dr. Yix-Maiden, and representatives from 3 other species. The first meeting was awkward. The aliens were used to dictating terms to other species. The humans were used to making their own decisions. But slowly, they began to understand each other. "What do you want from us?" Vex Prime asked during the second day of talks. "Nothing," President White said. "We just want to be left alone to live our lives. But you're expanding so rapidly. Other species are concerned." "We're not expanding into anyone's territory," Admiral Morrison said. "We only settle on uninhabited worlds. We've never attacked another species or claimed their planets." Then why won't you follow our procedures?" asked Klex-9. "Because your procedures assume we need your permission to exist," President White said. "We don't. We're perfectly capable of taking care of ourselves." Dr. Yix-Maiden leaned forward. "What if we could find a way for you to expand while still maintaining galactic stability?" "We're listening," President White said. The breakthrough came on the 3rd day. Instead of trying to control human expansion, the council would work with it. Humans would be given observer status on the council and a voice in galactic affairs. In return, they would agree to respect the sovereignty of established civilizations and share certain technologies with council member species. "It's not perfect," Dr. Yix-Maiden said privately to Vex Prime. "But it's workable. Will the other species accept this?" Vex Prime asked. "They'll have to. The alternative is watching the council system collapse as more species follow the human. Example, the signing ceremony took place 6 months later. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on the neutral station to witness the first Human Galactic Council Accords. President White signed first, followed by Admiral Morrison and Director Bell, then Vex Prime signed with all 6 of his hands, followed by the other council representatives. "This is the beginning of a new era," Vex Prime announced. "An era where species can work together as partners instead of subjects and rulers." The news spread quickly through human space. Oh. New Frontier, the colonists threw another party. This time, they were celebrating not just their independence, but their recognition as equals in galactic affairs. Lucy Torres stood once again on the platform in the main square, but this time she wasn't alone. Dr. Yix Meden had come to visit the colony that had started the whole conflict. 3 years ago, Lucy said to the crowd, "We came here to build new lives. We never expected to change galactic politics." Dr. Yix Meden stepped forward. His crystal body glowed with warm golden light. "You didn't change galactic politics. You reminded us what politics should be about. People working together to build something better." The crowd applauded. Children who had been born on New Frontier looked up at the alien scientist with curiosity rather than fear. "Will there be more conflicts?" asked Joe Martinez. "Probably," Dr. Yix Meden said. "But now we have a way to resolve them through talking instead of fighting." On Earth, the changes were already beginning. The first human observer had been appointed to the council. Trade agreements were being negotiated with species that had previously been forbidden to deal with humans. And most importantly, human expansion continued without interference, but the biggest change was philosophical. The idea that species could be partners rather than subjects was spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species were demanding more say in their own affairs. The rigid hierarchy that had ruled for millennia was slowly giving way to something more flexible and democratic on New Kansas. Pete Johnson was working in his fields when his neighbor Jack Williams came over with news. "The Valdorians want to establish a trade agreement with us," Jack said. "They want to buy our corn and wheat." "The same Valdorians who claimed this planet belonged to them?" Pete asked. "The very same. Apparently they realize that having us here is better than having an empty planet." Pete laughed. "I guess everyone's learning to get along. Think it will last?" Jack asked. Pete looked out over the fields of golden grain that stretched to the horizon. "It'll last as long as people remember that there's enough room in the galaxy for everyone." He was right. The galaxy was vast, with millions of habitable worlds and billions of uninhabited systems. There was room for every species to grow and prosper. As long as they were willing to work together, the Galactic Council had learned something important about humans. They weren't conquerors or rebels. They were builders. They took empty places and made them into homes. They turned unused resources into useful things. And most importantly, they believed that everyone deserved the chance to build a better life. The humans, in turn, had learned something about the galaxy. It was full of different species with different ways of thinking. Some were rigid and formal, others were flexible and creative. But all of them, in their own way, were trying to build something meaningful. The conflict that had started with the Council's declaration of sanctions ended with the galaxy's first real partnership between equals. It wasn't perfect, and there would be challenges ahead. But it was a start, and for humans, starting was always the hardest part. Once they got started, they could build anything, even a better galaxy.